Hello, it's Cynthia at Pretty Paper Blackbirds. Thank you so much for stopping by today for this video. I am going to be using this Honeybee Stamps Scandinavian Christmas stamp and die set for today's card. I used this sentiment in a card a couple of weeks ago, and I've been really excited to come back and take another look at this set and see what I could do with it. So I am going to be using lots of elements from this stamp and die set, and I am also using, of course, my favorite cardstock. This is Hero Arts Hero Hues 111 pound cardstock, in pitch black. And I have two pieces. I have my card base piece here. This is 5.5 by 8.5, so it's an A2 size. I've already gone and made just a little fold mark here so I know where the fold will be. And then I've made some hash marks here to find the exact center of this card face. And then I have a slightly smaller piece. I have cut this piece down to 4 by 5.25, so it's going to be a little front panel for the front of this card. I'm going to start with my front panel, and I am going to ink that up in my Misty. The first thing I want to do is create a mask for the center of my embossed area. I'm going to do that with just a piece of tape that is wider than my wider than my stamp. And then I'll place my stamp over and make sure that it is in the exact center. Going to use my Pink and Main anti-static powder tool just to make sure that I don't get any stray bits of embossing powder on my front panel here. So I'm going to ink this up with Versamark embossing ink. I have just a folded piece of copy paper that I will use to catch any stray embossing powder. This is Ranger Detail Silver embossing powder. I'm going to heat emboss this, and then I can stamp the sentiment on the inside. Okay, that's cool. For the inside sentiment, I'm going to little powder here in the center again, just to make sure that I get a good clean stamp. And I want to make sure that this is centered within this space here. Okay, that looks pretty good. There might be a little bit of cleanup to do here. Oops, just flipped powder out. Okay, this looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and heat emboss this sentiment. Okay, so here's the front panel. Wipe off any excess anti-static powder. This looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and die cut this. And I have this, it's the larger of the two dies. So this set comes with a die that will cut the outline, and then another slightly smaller die that will cut on the inside. So you could cut out a frame here if you wanted. I'm going to go ahead and just cut this out as one piece. So I'll tape this down and run it through my Gemini. I'm going to tape it a little bit more. It's a bit warped from all of the heat embossing. Okay, here's my die cut. That looks pretty good. So I'm ready to move on to stamping. Okay, we're ready to work on that stamping and perfect pearls. So here's the card base that I've made these tick marks on to find the center. And what I wanted to do with that is just make sure with this die cut that we just made that I can center this exactly in the middle, or as close to the middle as I can without being super mathy about it. So what I want to do is just draw an outline here. So I'll have some reference point for this stamping for my holly and my greens here on the front. So I want to stamp above and below. And I want to make some little marks here to remind myself not to go below this tick mark and not to go above this tick mark. I want this part of the center to be open. So I think that is good, and I'm going to start this stamping. And just to show you what I'm talking about here, so I'm keeping this space open here in the center for stamping. I want all of the center to be free of any stamping. So those little reference marks are just going to help me remember not to stamp above and below there. And in fact, because I do sometimes get so lost in what I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and put a piece of tape here at the top to remind myself not to stamp above this fold line so I don't accidentally get any stamping on the back of my card. Okay, so you can lay out your stamps however you want, whatever is pleasing to you. I'm going to follow roughly what I did on my reference card, just for the sake of not taking forever to stamp this out. So what I did was sort of this pattern. Again, being very careful not to stamp onto the back of my card. And let's see. You'll stamp this in 2 layers as well. All of the stamps won't fit on one layer, and you're going to want to overlap some of this foliage a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to use Perfect Medium to ink this up. It is made to go with Perfect Pearls. Perfect Pearls does have a little bit of a sticky element in it to help it to stick. But if you're using it dry, you do need Perfect Medium. Okay, so this is going to be my first layer. And then I'm going to go back and fill in everywhere that I have these open spaces with an additional stamp. The chamois getting kind of dry. So I'm going to reuse this one because I want that one to go right there. And let's see. Okay, there's the top. So what I am going to do now, get all of our stamps out of the way for just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and apply the Perfect Pearls to this top part, and then I'll start working on the bottom. I'm going to use a folded paper towel, and I have 2 brushes. These came with the Perfect Pearls. There is a brush to apply, and then there's this very soft fluffy brush that you can use to sweep off the excess powder. So I'm going to use mint, which on this black background looks surprisingly spruce green, sunflower sparkle, and confetti white. And I'm going to apply all of these at once. In my test card, I did do this, I did each color one at a time. It took a very long time, and I don't know that it's really necessary to do that. Okay, now you can just take your fluffy brush and brush off all of the excess powder. Okay, so the next thing that you want to do is mist this with water. So what I do is I just spray my mist into the air and I let it sort of fall down in very small mist droplets onto the paper. I'm going to do this off screen, off behind me, so I don't get my workspace wet with mist. But you don't want to spray the paper directly. Spray it into the air and then sort of run your paper through it. And that is enough to set that powder. I'm going to go ahead and heat dry this because I want to go ahead and move on to the bottom section of my stamping. Okay, the bottom section is just like the top section. I'm going to go ahead and arrange my stamps up here in this sort of arc situation in a way that looks pleasing, and then I will ink everything up with the perfect medium, and then I will apply the perfect pearls just like I did for the bottom section. Okay, I have most of the stamping done here. The last thing that I want to do is I want to go back in with this very small berry stamp, and I'm going to use just a stamp block to stamp this a couple of times on the top and bottom, and I'm going to heat emboss those berries with some copper embossing powder and some Versamark ink. I won't press too hard. I'm just going to put some here, here, maybe here. Okay. Bring back my folded paper. This is Wow Metallic Copper Embossing Powder. Try to get as much of that extra powder off as I can. Okay. I'm going to heat this up and see how it looks. Okay. I'm going to use my microfiber cloth and just sort of clean up a little bit around my images. I don't want to rub them directly. And then I'm going to use that, again, that light misting of water one more time over this entire image to make sure that it's thoroughly set. Okay. I'm going to use some foam squares to adhere this panel. Sort of following those little lines that I drew on earlier to make sure that this is straight. Okay, next I'm going to use some, I use this quite a bit. This is Pearl Satin Pops of Color, and I'm going to create some little berries on these white branches, just on the tips, and it just takes a tiny dot of color. Okay. That is the completed card. Pretty quick and simple, but has a lot of impact with all of this glittery, actually it's not glittery, it's just a shimmery, beautiful pops of color here with this perfect pearls. Really like this card. I'm happy with how this came out and happy to have a chance to get in one more holiday card here just a couple of days before Christmas. Thank you so much for watching. I'll have all of the materials up on my blog, and I was able to just post this slimline envelope template that I had mentioned in a video a few weeks ago. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you back here again for the next video.